Hello, dear aquarists. Today our case number 51. On all the cases I have been working on fish diseases, we encounter sometimes very common diseases like white spot or gill flukes, but sometimes we encounter some diseases which are not usual, found on an easy way. And this is why I'm sharing you this information I collected from checking this Ranchu goldfish, which had tubercles in the organs. When we see the fish swimming in the fish tank, some had heavy respiration, some did become weak, listless, and eventually die. But in general, the fish were swimming around, but the daily losses were not so happily seen. We don't like losing fish. But in general, nothing obvious could be seen with the naked eye. Even if you look at the fish closely in our collecting tube, we could only see a heavy respiration. That was, the fish was suffering from a gill problem. He had some red markings at his pectoral fin, but some had sometimes raised scales, but nothing else we could see except when we start doing our observation with the help of a microscope and doing a dissection and collecting the material, like here the gills. And we saw here on the gills, you see here on the right, the bacterial infection, which is causing necrosis or deterioration of the gill tissue. Also this part. Here we see the top of the part, all with bacteria closing up the gills so that the fish will suffocate and die from this kind of problem. And sometimes we found colonaris bacteria in this kind of group of bacteria colonies, which are infecting those gill lamellae. But when we dissected the fish and we looked at the organs, and we squeezed here on the left the spleen and on the right the liver, we could see all those nodules, like tubercles, many of them taken up healthy tissue. So the organs were in very bad shape. And that you can notice here at the microscope at a 200 magnification. You can see the large tubercles here, some small ones. They're on the right, the liver, small ones and big ones, taking up healthy tissue. So the organs, the spleen and the liver, are working very badly. And this is most likely due to tuberculosis or mycobacterium. A laboratory for you can determine that. It takes a few days and it costs you maybe about $150. But that's something you think about, particularly when you're a breeder, to find out what is going on. So for that kind of fish, what kind of treatment can I propose? Well, like I said, sometimes disease does not show up for our naked eyes, and a good examination will be helpful. The very badly affected fish which are suffering and dying, you better put them asleep. You can use for that Narcomore Plus. Our treatment with antibiotics, you can ask your vet, can be very helpful to control the secondary bacterial infection. So the fish might live much longer. And some fish do live a long time with those tubercle infections, because some have it a very little bit, a very tiny infection, and other ones have a very serious infection. And over the time, it can become serious, of course, it can grow. The treatment of the mycobacterium has not shown any good success, because if you can see here, those tubercles are encapsulated by a capsule or by the organs who are defending themselves against the bacterial intrusion. But at the same time, it's very difficult for the medication to penetrate in that capsule. So it's a problem to treat successfully against mycobacterium. You can feed with our Dr. Bassleer Biosis Food Fuco that can help the fish to regenerate, to defend themselves, and to become stronger. Do not give any other food meanwhile. Very important that you look for the source of the problem. Usually that's the breeder, the farmer, who is breeding the fish with parents which had already the infection. Also by feeding food like mosquito larvae which are in many cases carrying the mycobacterium, can also be a reason that infection becomes more serious. So some things to think about when you're dealing with an infection like this, and I try to explain that in many cases, that when you are dealing with fish diseases, your examination is very important. Of course, some diseases we define with the naked eye, but like in this case, we had to go to check for the liver and the spleen to find the problem. And here it looks like a mycobacterium, which is a nasty disease for our aquarium fish. Okay, thank you for watching.